They're both young CEOs with impressive achievements, but they have very different identities. He's an Omega with the looks of a rose, and the temperament of a his pheromone levels are naturally way too high. He's always worried about losing control, so he carries suppressants every day to avoid messing up his daily. He looks tough on the outside, but inside, he's actually really fragile. Meanwhile, the other one's an alpha, smells like white sand, dark as ink on the inside. He's also dealing with super high pheromone levels, afraid of losing control, so he's also carrying suppressants all the time. In a fancy hotel, Xiaoqi checks his watch nervously, then looks up and breathes a huge sigh. Finally, the person he's waiting for shows up. Yu Zhao walks in under the lights, moving with purpose. You can't help but admire his elegance and confidence. What's up? Xiaoqi, our President Chang and President Lu here. Xiaoqi, Yu Zhao. It's not just them. President Yang showed up. This deal was originally Yu Zhao's project. He spent half a month eating dust just to lock down President Chang. Never expected Yu Yang to suddenly swoop in. Xiaoqi Wong Ji Zhao worriedly. We can't let him steal this from us. President Zhao, you worked so hard on this for so long. Finally got President Chang on board. Now finished. President Yang shows up but to take just credit. Casually replies, of course not. He knows full well, as an Omega doing business deals, he's got to work 200% harder than his competition just to get 100% respect. But to him, crushing an alpha and taking back what's his is as easy as drinking water. Right then, Yu Yang walks over with a smile. Oh wow, look who it is. If it isn't pleasant, he tries to put his hand on Yu. Jiang Shao smoothly dodges it. Yu Yang doesn't care. Still smiling, he leads Yu Zhao into the private room. Sorry about that. Had to step out to pick up my Omega brother. Where were we just now? When they see Yu Zhao arrive, they just give him a slight nod. Yu Yang's lips curl into a smug smile, thinking Yu Zhao Xi. They're working with the company either way. An alpha like him is obviously the better choice. No matter how good you are, you're still just a second-rate Omega. Yu Zhao knows. They like Yu Yang at first sight, because Yu Yang's an alpha. But Yu Zhao's used to this unwritten rule. He already has a plan. Let him enjoy it a little longer. The server attends to Yu Zhao, asking what he needs. Yu Zhao answers briefly. The server pours tea for Yu Zhao, then suddenly releases strong pheromone. This makes Yu Zhao uneasy. He immediately checks his neck patch. Everything's fine. He breathes a sigh of relief. Yu Zhao's pheromone scent is way too strong, so he always wears a thin pheromone blocker on his neck, so others can't smell it. To protect himself, Yu Zhao stands up, says excuse me for a moment, watching Yu Zhao leave. Yu Yang smiles confidently. Yu Zhao has a secret. Very few people know it, but that's his half-brother. Yu Yang knows Yu Zhao's pheromones are naturally super concentrated. If an alpha has high pheromone levels, that's obviously a great thing. But for an Omega, for his alpha, that's also a great thing, right? The blocker patch is fine, but just to be safe, Yu Zhao decides to go to the restroom and take a suppressant. He gets to the restroom. Like usual, he takes out a suppressant and injects himself. But shortly after the injection, Yu Zhao's body has an abnormal reaction. His heartbeat becomes rapid and irregular. He softly slides down to the restroom floor. Wash it back there. Realizing something's wrong, Yu Zhao immediately calls Xiaoqi, hoping he can bring suppressants. But no matter how many times he dials, the call won't go through. Just then, Ku Jing walks up to the restroom door, sees the cleaning sign, figures there shouldn't be anyone inside. But he never imagined. The man hears strange sounds from inside the restroom, so he rushes in to help, but instead runs into a bound Omega. Ku Jing has to admit, he's really shocked by what he's seeing. Yu Zhao right now has lost his usual his whole body's burning. Ku Jing immediately crouches in front of him, gently comforting him. Don't be scared, I'm here to help. Then he quickly removes the tie from Yu Zhao's mouth. Yu Zhao almost immediately moans. His breath falls on Ku Jing's lips. Ku Jing catches it's like roses, but sweeter than roses. This intoxicating aroma, like a beautiful person made of honey and roses. Ku Jing reaches out to untie Yu Zhao. The honey, rose beauty immediately falls into Ku Jing's arms, radiating undeniable heat. Yu Zhao keeps his eyes closed, greedily pressing his lips to Ku Jing's neck. The musk scent coming from there makes Yu Zhao feel strangely refreshed. Hey, don't bite. He understands this gorgeous Omega in front of him, but it's okay. He'll help him. Comforts Yu Zhao. This might hurt a little. Yu Zhao cries out. Pain shoots from his butt. The instant effect suppressant has to be injected in the room. Going back half an hour. Today Ku Jing's at the Yuanya Hotel for a business meeting. The other guy checks out Ku Jing. Your alpha pheromones are super strong. Ku Jing shrugs and nods. So it might not feel that obvious. The guy pokes him curiously. So Omegas really feel it. Ku Jing smiles. Depends. Sometimes when I run into Omega, especially the ones in heat who aren't on suppressant, they really bother me. The guy immediately laughs. What's so bothersome about that? Ku Jing says, with a smile. Give them a suppressant shot. The guy thinks Ku Jing's joking. What alpha carries suppressants around? But actually, Ku Jing really does carry suppressants. As an alpha with super intense hormones, has to be ready for emergencies at all times. Or the weird hostility from other alphas. Like carrying strong suppressants with him. Ku Jing looks at the Omega calming down in his arms. He sighs. Glad he had it on him. Or he'd be totally sure. Not long ago, a drunk executive suggested, if Ku Jing dares to stay in an Omega restroom for 1 minute, without causing a scene, he'll sign the contract. Facing the challenge, Ku Jing would normally fake passing out drunk, and not take the bait. to get the contract signed. But this time he already had a plan. No need to do something so touchy. Because he happened to see the restroom was being cleaned, so he agreed. Turns out there was still an accident. Just then, Yu Zhao wakes up, sees Ku Jing and his eyes fill with shock. Ku Jing asks, "You okay? Why were you tied up in the restroom?" Yu Zhao doesn't know Ku Jing, so 拿手一走 silently pushes Ku Jing away and tries to stand up. Ku Jing tries to help, but Yu Zhao dodges. "I can stand up myself, thanks." Just a moment ago he was so passionate. Now he's cold as ice. Right then, the backup Yu Zhao called finally arrives. It's a stylish omega named Huashi. Huashi Roshijin sees Yu Zhao disheveled, standing with an alpha. He's shocked, quickly goes over to ask Yu Zhao if he's okay. Yu Zhao shakes his head, says he's fine. Then Huashi eyes Ku Jing suspiciously. "Who are you? Why are you in the omega restroom?" Facing the sudden interrogation, Ku Jing's a bit back. He thinks for a second, sees a mop nearby, explains he's just cleaning, then grabs the mop and hurries out of the restroom. Huashi and Yu Zhao are both stunned. When Ku Jing gets back to the private room, the executive curiously asks what he's holding. Ku Jing says with a smile, "It's the mop from the omega restroom." To protect himself, he locked himself in the restroom. But just then, an alpha barges in. The man puts his hand on his waist and gently tells him, "Omega, this might hurt a little." Yu Zhao tells him this strange alpha was about to do something to him. Pain shoots from his butt. Yu Zhao cries out, almost at the same time. The strong suppressant enters his body. Then Huashi rushes in with suppressants. Seeing an alpha in an omega restroom, he instantly eyes him with suspicion and asks why the man's here. Facing the sudden question, Ku Jing's a bit up, seeing the mop nearby. He says he's just cleaning, then turns and leaves. She and Yu Zhao are both after Ku Jing leaves, Huashi quickly closes the restroom door, muttering about who that guy was. While asking Yu Zhao if anything happened, Yu Zhao shakes his head. But thinking about his sudden loss of control, he figures it was Yu Yang's doing. Just didn't expect Yang to use such dirty tricks. Yu Zhao's so angry he's grinding his teeth. What a total humiliation. But then Yu Zhao feels lucky it was this alpha he ran into. If it had been someone with that intention. Yu Zhao thinks back to what just happened. Takes a deep breath, still shaking. Right now Yu Zhao is disheveled, looking like a total mess. He can't go back to the table. He decides to leave. But after 2 steps, starts to sting. Next day, Yu Yang stops him with a big smile. "Hey bro, why'd you leave without a word last night? President Cheng and President Lu kept asking about they'd sign if you were there. But since you weren't, I got lucky." Xiao Qi looks annoyed. "I haven't heard anything about a signed contract." Yu Yang laughed. "Stop. Just a couple days. Once it's signed, I'll treat everyone to dinner." What's that? Yu Yang walks off smugly. Xiao Qi's pretty mad. Turns to Yu Zhao. "President Zhao, should we expose him first?" Yu Zhao raises his hand to stop him. "Let him expose himself." Yu Zhao's always so calm. If it were hot, he'd already be going after Yu Yang with a hammer. After finishing today's work, Yu Zhao tells Xiao Qi to send the report tomorrow. This surprises Xia, because Yu Zhao's usually a workaholic. She asks curiously, "President Jiu Ling's early?" Yu Zhao nods. "Yeah, got something to do." Xiao Qi's more shocked than seeing a UFO. What kind of big deal makes President Zhao leave on time? Because normally Yu Zhao's a total workaholic. Works late every night. Like the office is his second home. Yu Zhao checks his watch. Big deal, not sure. Got a blind date. Xiao Qi lets out a gasp. "Oh, a blind date." Yu Zhao's always been single. People at the company, including Xiao Qi, figured Yu Zhao was against marriage. Said he'd more likely get sterilized than go on a blind date. However, it turns out everyone's wrong. Yu Zhao has nothing against marriage. The reason he's been single all these years isn't that he doesn't want to. Right. Yu Zhao's pheromones are too unique, so it's hard to match. Plus he has one condition that's reasonable, but also pretty demanding. Equal social status. Luckily, he finally found a suitable blind date. Meanwhile, in a fancy hotel private room, Ku Jing checks his watch. Soon after, the elevator dings. Ku Jing happily stands, ready to scream. To save them, he decisively gave them a shot. But what no one expected, the next day at the blind date, they actually reunite at the blind date. It's all because his pheromones are way. Finding a match is tough. Plus, Yu Zhao has this extra condition about matching social status, so it's even tougher. That day he got set up on the blind date. Huashi was wearing a floral shirt and skinny jeans, standing next to his flashy red sports car, drawing amazed and envious looks from passers-by. But Yu Zhao frowned at his tacky outfit, hesitating whether to catch another ride to the date. Just as Yu Zhao was about to leave, Huashi had already called out to him. "Hey boss Zhao." Though annoyed inside, Yu Zhao reluctantly got into Huashi's car. In the car, Huashi and Yu Zhao chatted about the upcoming blind date. "Why didn't you dress up for the date today?" Yu Zhao laughed. Looks more like you're the one going on a date. But Huashi dismissed that. "I got to be crazy to go on a blind date. I'm not done having fun yet." Then Huashi asked Yu Zhao curiously if he'd seen a photo of his date and what they looked like. Yu Zhao admitted he hadn't seen one yet. Huashi was really surprised. But Yu Zhao explained casually, though he hasn't seen them, their pheromones already matched. So, it's unlikely they won't. Even so, Huashi reminded him that matching pheromones just mean they can get it on. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll click. Yu Zhao agreed with that, but he especially emphasized the other person's. founder, CEO, and chairman of the board of Jinmen Group.
That's enough.
Huashi said helpfully. So you're rushing to get married just for that, huh? Yu Zhao answered calmly. Every Omega gets married for that, right? Getting pregnant, having kids is so fun. Huashi understood Yu's position. After all, he'd always been oppressed by Yu, and needed a powerful family as bad. Yu's always used his Omega father's family status to bully you. If you can also find a powerful family for backup, then you won't have to keep giving in. That's pretty good. Hearing this, Yu Zhao actually felt a bit tired. The car soon reached the meeting place. The blind date was arranged in a private room. Yu Zhao and Huashi stood in the elevator. Huashi asked Yu Zhao, what's the name of the alpha he's meeting? Yu Zhao answered, Hu Jingying, founder, CEO, and chairman of the board of Jinmen Group. Huashi said, annoyed. You don't have to stress his title so many times. Yu Zhao looked at you. Of course I do. That's the point. If Hu Jing weren't the founder and chairman of Jinmen Group, even if their pheromones matched to 100%, Yu Zhao wouldn't give him a second glance, let alone come here to have dinner with him and promise to have his kids later. He doesn't do deals with low return, high return deals. No matter the risk, he doesn't. When the elevator slowly opened, a man in a suit walked over gracefully. He greeted them politely. But when Hu Jing and Yu Zhao's eyes met, the hand raised in midair to shake froze instantly. Huashi was shocked by this sudden turn. But Hu Jing and Yu Zhao quickly snapped out of it. The two complimented each other and shook hands cordially. Yu Zhao put on a business smile. Mr. Ku, I've heard so much about you. Hu Jing also casually showed a business smile. Mr. Zhang, I've heard great things about you too. Meeting you today for the first time is truly my honor. They seemed casual enough, but they both understood. While they were deliberately emphasizing the first time meeting, he thought, do they both have memory problems or something? Hu Jing had Yu Zhao sit down, neither seemed off. Then, they chatted briefly, and ended the meeting. On the way home, Yu Zhao sat in the passenger seat, looking troubled. Huashi asked, puzzled, was that the offer from yesterday? Yu Zhao confirmed it. Yu Zhao closed his eyes, and sighed it's probably dead. Huashi didn't get what Yu Zhao meant, so he asked what's it. Yu Zhao explained, if you're on a blind date and find out the person was tied to a toilet in heat the day before, how would you feel? Huashi thought seriously. I think he's into some wild stuff. And happily asked him to get a room. Yu Zhao smiled, but he didn't ask me to get a room. Clearly, he only thought of what you said first. The CEO unexpectedly met an Omega with alluring fruity pheromones. But in this romantic encounter, a scentless Omega suddenly showed up out of nowhere. Continuing from before, Hu Jing had just finished a blind date. Just then, he got an urgent call. Turns out there was an issue abroad with stock allocation that needed his immediate attention. So, he immediately had his assistant Tan Ki book a flight overseas. Right after, Hu Jing contacted the partner company's address and told Tan Ki to hurry and drive. Then he had a quick talk with the local contact. And the task was done. The partner was very satisfied and enthusiastically invited Hu Jing to a party that evening. Hu Jing agreed without hesitation. The ballroom full of gorgeous Omegas. And they had little resistance to an alpha with super strong pheromones. Even though working non-stop had exhausted Hu Jing, he still looked energized. Tan Ki couldn't help but admire Mr. Ku's powerful stamina. Totally like Mr. Ku working non-stop like that and still has energy for a party. No wonder he's the boss. But Hu Jing had his own worries. He knew he had super high pheromone levels. It's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So he was very cautious at the party. He told his secretary, I'm not drinking today. Tan Ki nodded knowingly, took a champagne glass from the server, poured out the champagne glass with pure tea. It looked pale yellow too, so no one would notice the difference. Tan Ki handed over the champagne glass with pure. Hu Jing held a safe champagne and chatted with everyone. The partner introduced Hu Jing to an intern named Xie Lin, an Omega with a face like an apple. He was also a promising young man from their country. Admired Hu Jing for a long time. Knowing he was coming, he'd been trying to get into this party. Xie Lin smiled, his pretty face turning apple red. Hu Jing nodded and took a sip of pure tea. This is really too kind. At that moment, the partner had to greet other guests, so he stepped away. Tan Ki also went to the restroom. With the partner and Tan Ki gone, Hu Jing and Xie Lin fell into awkward silence. But Xie Lin wasn't bothered by the atmosphere. He took the initiative to tell Hu Jing his internship was ending soon, but he was highly bound, so he really hoped to work at Jinmen Group. From Hu Jing's perspective, he saw a young man with an apple head getting closer and closer, making him super nervous. Even so, he politely replied, that's great. Our company really welcomes talent like you. Xie Lin smiled, showing his charming smile, letting Hu Jing feel his confidence and charm. He said, blushing, I'll need Mr. Ku to guide me a lot when I don't understand things later. Hu Jing smiled and nodded. To escape the seashore, he downed his pure tea in one go. Just then, a server came over and asked, your glass is out. Would you like a refill? Hu Jing politely declined. No thanks. I'll wait for my secretary to come back. A man handed him a drink. Mr. Ku wants some. Hu Jing glanced over and saw it was the scentless Omega. Yu Zhao with his expression. Hu Jing had seen Yu Zhao 3 times in just 2 days, and each meeting made him more and more curious about this person. Because he found that Yu Zhao never gave off any scent in public, which really surprised him. He'd smelled Yu Zhao's scent before and it was incredibly strong, lingering like deep water. But normally he didn't let out any scent at all, like an Omega with some dysfunction. Cold eyes, boring body. But the truth was exactly the opposite. Faced with a drink, Hu Jing took it and had a sip, breaking his no alcohol rule. Didn't expect to see you here too, Mr. Zhao nodded. What a coincidence. Lin looked at this Omega who came out of nowhere. He wasn't happy inside but smiled anyway. Why not introduce? Is this also a friend of Mr. Ku? Yu Zhao answered simply, not really, we're not friends. Just a normal blind date thing. Ku Jing had seen his share of surprises, but hearing Yu Zhao's answer, he still choked. Yu Zhao was chatting happily with the executive. Feng Tingwei spotted Yu Zhao and raised his glass to him. Zhao, you're here too. Yu Zhao heard the familiar voice, turned his head, and sure enough saw Feng Tingwei standing in the blind. Yu Zhao walked over to Feng and clinked glasses with him. Long time no see. Feng Tingwei you're not being cool, kid. Wu Zhao was confused. Feng Tingwei clicked his tongue twice. You've been on blind dates lately, you didn't even tell me. Yu Zhao shook his head. Nothing said yet. No point mentioning Feng Tingwei was an Omega himself, so he had a soft spot for Omega's building careers. Especially Yu Zhao, who reminded him of himself in his 20s. So Feng Tingwei was pretty caring toward him. Feng Tingwei smiled at Yu Zhao. Blind dates aren't reliable anyway. Better to close a couple big deals and impress your old man. Yu Zhao nodded. Yeah, but his tone was dismissive. Actually, Yu Zhao used to think that way too. He thought if he did well in business, he did his father's support. But that wasn't the case. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't match his alpha brother's influence in his father's eyes. He could get 100 things right to equal one thing the other got right. Not to mention how many of his deals you secretly sabotage. How could his father not know? He just turned a blind eye. All at the unfair treatments. Yu Zhao finally got it. He couldn't earn status in this family. Fan Qingwei gave Yu Zhao. Alright, I'll introduce you to a big client. If you close the deal later, buy me dinner. Hearing the words big client, Yu Zhao's eyes lit up instantly. He forgot his side and said energetically, that'd be amazing. Thanks so much to make such a big deal introducing a client to him. This must be a really huge client. Meeting a big client made Yu Zhao like a cat that caught a fish, practically licking his lips and turning around. Feng Tingwei led Yu Zhao over to an alpha. Feng Tingwei introduced this is Jiao Bohuo, CEO of Fengguang Company. Young town. Honestly speaking, Yu Zhao had already noticed him the moment he walked in. No other reason. It's rare to see an alpha dress as flashy as the Omega Huaxi. His white shirt's collar, cuffs, and buttons were all studded with crystals, sparkling under the party lights, making it hard not to notice him first. Huo and Jiao Bohuo shook hands. Zhao Bohuo smiled. Yu Xiao, Mr. Feng's always talking about you. Yu Zhao politely replied, hello, Yu Zhao, but spoke to Feng Tingwei. Why didn't you tell me sooner that Mr. Xiao is such a beautiful Omega? He thought though the scent's so faint you can't smell it. Feng Tingwei laughed. His look, like a beta. Nothing affects him. Yu Zhao chuckled. You're too kind, Mr. Gao. I wonder if Fengguang Company has any business expansion. He only talks business. Feng gave Zhao Dihua a look. He only talks business. Yu Zhao deliberately steered the conversation to business. Zhao Bohuo picked up on it and started talking about his business. There is some collaboration I'd like to discuss with Mr. Shi. If you want a domestic fund for hedging. Jinmen Group. Have you heard of it? Yu Zhao and Zhao Bohuo chatted for a while. Before parting, Zhao Bohuo shook hands with Yu Zhao. I'll have to trouble you for an introduction later, Mr. Shao. Here's my card. Let's stay in touch. After exchanging cards, they parted ways. Yu Zhao had been worried about how to set up future interactions with Ku Ji. Can't keep bumping into each other. That'd be really dumb. Now with Jiao Bohuo as a bridge, everything fell into. And if he landed Jiao Bohuo, it wouldn't be Yu Zhao chasing Ku Jing trying to meet up. It'd be Ku Jing chasing Yu Zhao for dinners and gifts. But his phone rang at the wrong time. Hello. Yu Zhao answered the phone. Hello, Yu Zhao picked up the phone. Mr. Zhao, the voice came through the line, surprisingly husky and sexy. Yu Zhao was suddenly pulled by this voice, stunned for a moment. Oh, is this Mr. Ku Jing hung? Blame you for making me drink half a glass. I can't drive now. Give me a ride home. Yu Zhao kindly bought Ku Jing a glass of 8+1. Who knew he'd get stuck with the bill afterward? Asked Yu Zhao to take him home. I got you an 8+1. You've had it before, haven't you? The man answered. That was pure tea, my secretary. Yu Zhao finally understood. He smiled helpless. So that's how. Using pure set of champagne. That's also pretty weird. But thinking about it carefully, this alpha carries strong suppressants with him. So it's not that strange. I didn't know the situation. I'm really sorry I caused you trouble. Ku Jing answered, drive me home. Yu Zhao said he also had 8+1. Ku Jing couldn't help but ask, then how are you getting back? Yu Zhao told Ku Jing his assistant drove the car. Then give me a lift. Ku Jing's tone was very matter of fact, as if Zhao was his assistant too. Yu Zhao thought, Ku Jing bought his secretary. How could he not have someone to drive him? Even if Ku Jing really didn't have a secretary. Calling a cab is also very convenient. Thinking about Yu Zhao could only come to one simple conclusion. Song Ku Jing came out. Your blind date is pretty damn handsome. Actually, your blind date is pretty damn handsome. Zhao in the passenger seat glanced over. He's alright. Who was hell? This is called alright. Boss, your standards are way too high. Yu Zhao answered, I don't have requirements for appearance. Well, I figured it out. Yu Zhao wasn't picking a partner, selecting a client. After you, He walked down and opened the back door for Ku Jing, with a cocky air. Boss. Ku Jing looked at He's flashy purple shirt and his cocky tone and found it interesting. Who would have thought the overly serious Yu Zhao would have such a cheeky assistant by his side? That's pretty funny. I borrowed your car. It's late. I don't want to make you guys detour. Whichever hotel you're staying at, I'll go there too. I should be able to book a room on the spot, right? Yu Zhao got the hint. If you don't mind, you can squeeze into my room. Ku Jing smiled. If Mr. Zhao doesn't mind, I don't mind yet. Yu Zhao looked at Ku Jing's eyes through the rearview mirror, and those sharp eyes in the mirror looked back at him. Yu Zhao's heart skipped a beat. The atmosphere in the car became strange. He listened to the two of them talking. The word war almost burst out of his mouth. What's going on here? Hua hit the gas. Feeling like this drive was way too unexpected, his car quickly arrived at the Tianli Hotel. In fact, Ku Jing was also staying at the Tianli Hotel. Of course, it was also because Ku Jing was staying at the Tianli Hotel that they stayed at this one, just to create a chance encounter. Who knew they'd drive back together? You guys are staying at this hotel? He said yes, what? Nothing. Ku Jing didn't mention he was also staying at this hotel. Then he said, just that tonight I'll have to squeeze in with Mr. Zhao. Squeezing where? Young Yu Zhao said good night to her and brought Ku Jing into his suit. Here it comes. The car has been waiting for us here. Now the casual's ultimate showdown. Ku Jing followed Zhao into the room. Probably because the shirt felt constricting. He undid the collar button first. Yu Zhao grabbed the remote and opened the floor-to-ceiling window. He pulled. Jing also followed Yu Zhao's gaze out the window. Your floor is too low. The view from my floor is way better. Zhao kept playing dumb. So Mr. Ku is also staying here. Ku Jing nodded. Yeah, wanna come up to my place to see the view. Yu Zhao glanced at Ku Jing and said, I'm not a casual. Ku Jing laughed. Then why did you pin me in the bathroom that day? Yu Zhao didn't expect him to suddenly bring that. That was the most embarrassing moment of Zhao's life. But Zhao's face showed no embarrassment. He calmly said, I'm not a casual person. Ku Jing walked toward him step by step. Yu Zhao's heart was pounding. This was a feeling he'd never had before. He suspected he was being controlled by pheromones. Too scary. Even though he'd already suppressed it with medication. Then he felt Ku Jing's breath coming from behind his ear. Then teeth pressed against Zhao's nape. Yu Zhao was so startled he almost jumped. But he found the teeth weren't pressing against his skin. He then bit open the barrier patch on Zhao's nape. The moment the barrier patch was removed, Ku Jing's nose was filled with the rich fragrance of honey rose. So this is the scent from that day. This editor's being honest, please let me on. Who knows how much time? Yu Zhao lay weakly on the bed, reminiscing about what just happened. So that's what it feels like. Yu Zhao, in a daze, understood this is involuntary pleasure. Suddenly a soreness came from his waist. Ku Jing immediately pulled Zhao into his arm and asked him where you want to go. Yu Zhao answered, I need to clean up. Ku Jing chuckled. So, clean up what? We're just gonna get dirty again in a bit. Yu Zhao's face instantly turned red. Can't do it anymore. Ku Jing glanced at Zhao sideways. Who can do it? Zhao gently wiped his sweaty forehead. He admitted defeat. Ku Jing raised his eyebrows in surprise. Then he smiled and carried Zhao into the bathtub. Yu Zhao was shocked. What are you doing? Ku Jing explained. Whoever makes the mess cleans it up. Yu Zhao soaked in the bathtub and glanced at Ku Jing's physical state. I can't play with you anymore. Ku Jing smiled. You scared I'm gonna go again? You already said you can't. Yu Zhao's gaze glanced downward. Your brain won't, but that's hard to say. That was true. In the end, Ku Jing left the bathroom laughing. And Yu Zhao breathed a sigh of relief, thinking how did things suddenly develop to this point. Damn pheromones. Evil pheromones. Just then the bathroom door was suddenly opened. Yu Zhao was so startled by this sudden move. His hands instinctively covered his chest. He nervously turned his head toward the door and saw Ku Jing walking toward him step by step. Yu Zhao wanted to stop. But Ku Jing didn't stop. Instead, he kept closing in on Yu Zhao. Was about to stop Ku Jing then, but saw Ku Jing pick up a syringe. Is this your suppressor? The kind you inject in your arm? He nodded. Ku Jing injected the suppressant into his own arm. Then smiled at Yu. Now you don't have to be scared of me. Yu Zhao froze. Was I scared? Ku Jing pulled out the essential oil. Come on, let me give Mr. Zhao a massage to relieve muscle soreness. I don't deserve this. Ku Jing casually tossed the empty syringe into the trash. Why don't you deserve it? I'm a eunuch now, perfect for serving people. Yu Zhao suddenly laughed out loud. Then I won't hold back. His heart skipped a beat. To keep the other from noticing, he quickly picked up the essential oil and poured it into his palm. Then skillfully began massaging Zhao. Yu Zhao closed his eyes, drowsy and comfortable. But his mind was racing. He traveled all the way to chase a client. Now the client was giving him a message. Does this count as successful? Thinking about it, Ku Jing first saw him in the bathroom. He probably thought his appetite was big. Now he came to the States and saw him twice and... Doesn't that just confirm that idea? Thinking about this, Zhao became more uneasy. So much so that when one of her hands got naughty on his body, he didn't even notice. Thinking the other might just be playing around, maybe wanting him as a hookup. While thinking this, Yu Zhao suddenly opened his eyes and said, I'm not a casual person. Ku Jing seeming not to understand why Zhao said that. Suddenly a ringtone sounded. Ku Jing turned and walked out the door. He answered the phone. Okay, I'll head back right away. Ku Jing walked into the bathroom with his phone. Mr. Zhao, I gotta go back to country. See you next time. Yu Zhao was shocked. This is just a hookup. Yu Zhao suddenly said off. Then he remembered he shouldn't seem too eager in front of the client. So he softened his tone. Don't you have anything to say? Ku Jing thought about it. He answered, I'm not a casual person. After two people claiming not to be casual had an indescribable encounter, Ku Jing returned to the country alone. Was left behind at the hotel. He couldn't help but shriek in shock. So he just went back to the country. Yu Zhao nodded. Did Ku Jing go back to the country alone? Yu Zhao froze. He asked doubtfully. Who else could he bring back? I said bluntly. Xiaoling, total slutty Omega. I feel like you won't let your client off that easy. Might even make a move on your client. Zhao wasn't worried about it. Hu asked in surprise why not. Even though I don't like him, I gotta admit as an Omega he's pretty charming. Yu Zhao thought about it. Feeling Xiaoling seemed pretty dumb. Seems kinda stupid. But He reminded Zhao, alphas don't care about IQ when choosing an Omega. Sometimes alphas even like Omegas who seem dumb. But Yu Zhao told Hua, Ku Jing ditches Xiaoling and went to his room. Hua Maybe he played games with Xiaoling first, then came to find Ji. Yu Zhao was suddenly incredulous. Is that even possible? Flo said hurriedly, for a super intense alpha is totally possible. Yu Zhao had nothing to say. After a long time, Flo continued. This society is way too good to alphas anyway. Yeah, you better be careful. This fit his usual style. As soon as he entered the company, Yu Hai chatting and laughing with an omega. Dou Zhao frowned. He still walked over calmly. He said to Yu Hai, "You're back. Was everything smooth in the States?" Yu Jiao nodded. His gaze lightly swept over that peach omega, like looking at a plant, no emotion. He greeted Yu Zhao. "Hello, Mr. Zhao. I'm Sha Cao, the new intern." Hearing this name, Yu Zhao thought of Shaoling again. Cao Zhao seemed very surprised. So he asked, "Is there something wrong with this answered, name?" "Nothing. It suits you well." Then Yu Hai smiled. "Yeah, I think so too. Little Tao smells like peach. It smells really good. Alright, I'm transferring Little Tao under you. Take good care of him." Yi Xiao nodded. Then exchanged a few pleasantries and returned to his office. Then Zhao made a phone call. He told the other person in half an hour to have Mr. Yang go to Mr. Hai's office. Yu Zhou thought Yu Hai likes to fool around in the office, so he probably wouldn't mind his son catching him in the act. Just then his phone received a message. It was Ku Jing asking if he was free tomorrow night at 9. Yu Zhao's heart skipped. He replied, "I'm free." Then he got Ku Jing's reply. After seeing the message, Yu Zhao's heart immediately pounded. He couldn't decide what to say, so he frantically called Hua for advice. "Okay." Hua answered, "This is obviously a hotel, and not even a date. Just a hookup. No sweet talk. No dinner or movies. Ha! Just hook up." Yu Zhao's mood became very complicated. After a long time, but he said he's not a casual person. Hua scoffed after hearing this. Seen a person who's not casual hook up on the first meeting. But Zhao answered, "Me." Hua gave up. Really can't think of how to argue with that. You two really are a match made in heaven. A person, 为什么有行之椰子哈? Yu Zhao pretended not to hear Hua's sarcasm. "I've got a client to meet in a bit." Hua shook his head when he heard, "Your alpha dad is totally unreliable. Won't get you the family business. Why do you still work so hard for him?" Yu Zhao answered calmly, "It's not for him." Yu Zhao heard from Feng Tingwei that Zhao Bohua returned. So, he immediately contacted